Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Horsey, Content Marketing Manager here at Medable, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's video, a brief look into the lives of two caregivers from Medable's own Patient Advisory Council. With me, I have Jim McNary and Paul Kidwell, both professional and personal patient advocates and caregivers who have years of experience. Jen and Paul, thanks for being here and taking time out of your busy schedules. Tell me what it's been like from each of your experiences in general, just as a caregiver.
Sure, I'm happy to start and talk a little bit about my life as a caregiver. I have two sons living with Duchenne muscular dystrophy who are adults now, and I have a third son with primary immune deficiency who is 13. I will start to say that when people talk about caregivers, they often sort of omit the fact that you need a lot of personal strength, and you need the ability to take care of yourself first. And that is something that I wish somebody had said a long time ago. There wasn't any consideration for my life and my feelings when my kids were first diagnosed with Duchenne. I was told to just take them home and love them because they were just going to pass away anyway. And that was just a horrific thing to hear when I was 21, actually, when they were diagnosed. And I quickly realized that if I didn't take care of myself, here I was parenting these children that were not expected to reach adulthood. And so I'm really lucky to have kind of hit that in my 40s, hit that understanding that there needed to be a lot of self-care. But with rare disease in particular, you also run into this feeling of isolation, because rare disease, while not rare as a whole, it's rare individually. And so I don't know anybody in my community who's living with either of these conditions. And so you often feel incredibly isolated, and it's really difficult to connect with other people.
Nobody wants to be a caregiver. It's not part of your grand life plan. You're always thrust in it by some unexpected incident, be it an illness or an injury or something traumatic in your life, as was the case with me and my wife. And so you're not prepared. Nobody can prepare you for it because it's a journey. You start out fumbling around and learning by mistake. Most of the first few years of my role as a caregiver, we're committing a lot of faux pas and learning from them. But for me, the greatest revelation was this is an emotional journey. And the difference between a patient, just in general, the patient and caregivers are, they experience the physical manifestations of an illness or some type of a medical condition, and we have to experience our own plus deal with the emotions of that patient. So that was a constant learning. It still is a learning experience for me after over a decade of fulfilling this role. And the emotions run the gamut on a daily basis. Happiness, sadness, grief. Sometimes you're over the moon because you think that you see an improvement in a condition, or a medication works better than one that you had been on before. And so you have those moments of elation. But I will attest, it's particularly with a progressive illness, where you're always waiting for the next shoe to drop. And when you think about what the future may bring, that is self-induced grief. And I'm taught not to, but you can't help but think that way. So for me, again, the greatest revelation, I should say, learning experience, was the fact that this is an emotional journey as a caregiver.
So Paul, what you're actually describing is anticipatory grief. This was something that I learned about and started writing about very early on, because again, I talk about all the time, parenting children that were going to die. And so what kind of a parent does that? And so you're always waiting with hope, you're waiting, but you don't want to have unrealistic hope or false hope. And so there's always been this sort of roller coaster of, maybe the outcome won't be that bad, but I don't want to get my hopes up. And so I'm going to sort of deal with it along the way, but know that I'm going to be sad in the future. And so I think capturing anticipatory grief is a really nuanced thing. You want to live in the moment, you want to be happy, you want to enjoy your life with somebody, but you're always waiting for the next bad thing to happen.
Well, the term that I've captured, actually, Jen, is, and I couldn't agree more, but mine is everyday grief. Because I mean, some of the listeners may think back of their college studies if they ever take a sociology class and learn about the 5 stages of grief by a sociologist by the name of Kubler-Ross. And what that presents in your mind, at least in the abstract, is this: there's a beginning and there's an end. Well, those of us who experience grief, and all of us experience grief, let's face it, now realize that that's not true. There is a beginning, certainly. And I would imagine there could be stages where you define this, where you are in terms of your own grief, but there is no end to it because it's something that stays with you every day. It kind of rears its ugly head at the oddest of moments. And again, as I said, for those of us who are involved with caring for people with progressive diseases, where you actually see a worsening of the condition over the years, it's ongoing. So I think both anticipatory and everyday grief are sort of encapsulate what this means to a caregiver.
Yeah, those are really good perspectives. Thank you both. I mean, one of the reasons we're having this conversation today, and thank you both, is that you guys give very honest, very real looks into what the lives are like, and that's appreciated, especially in an industry that hasn't always done the case, and maybe seem to gloss some of the less glamorous elements over.